there. Happy Thursday. I'm Connie Fuksa. Welcome to Coffee with Connie. I am Connie Fuksa with Footetitlegroup, where we protect your home ownership. Sorry for the confusion. Usually when I'm in my car and I'm sitting still, my phone will pick up through the radio, but I didn't realize for some reason it didn't flip over. So thanks for tuning in this morning, guys. I really appreciate your time. I'm a little bit later than I usually am because I had a couple things I had to take care of this morning. Thanks for your patience. Today I wanted to talk about something that came up with one of our closings that could happen, and maybe it's something you don't think about. Maybe you just expect everything to work out perfectly, and God knows I'd sure love for that to be the case, but it doesn't always happen that way. So sometimes I want you to understand what you need to be on the lookout for, and why you need to make sure what you're doing is what you are, what you anticipated. So we actually had a closing that came up that when we were sitting at the closing table, we go over the information at the closing, both with the buyer and the seller, with the address and the legal description of the property that's being sold. And we do that for several reasons, but one of those, in probably the most important reason, is we want to make sure that the property, if you're the seller, that you think you're selling is what's actually being sold. And if you're the buyer, that the property that you put a contract on is exactly what you are purchasing. And so a couple of different things could happen, but the first thing you have to understand is when we as a title company receive that contract from your realtor or the mortgage company, we start working on that property that's in that contract. So if for some reason the wrong lot number was put on the contract or the wrong address was put on the contract, it potentially could be ordered and taken care of as the wrong piece of property. And in this particular case that we did the closing for, the wrong lot number, the seller actually originally owned one piece of property, and they divided it into two pieces of property, and the property they were selling at the closing was not the property they intended to sell. They split that piece of property into two pieces. One had the house on it and one was just a piece of land. They were selling the house, and then they were going to build a new house for themselves on the piece of land. Well, when we were going through the closing, of course, we disclose, have a conversation with the buyers and the sellers and say, here's the piece of property that we did the search on, that was in your contract. This is what's being sold. And in this particular case, both of them said, absolutely not, that's the wrong piece of property. And it was a difference between a lot number, let's say lot 41 and 42, and in the contract it had 42 and everybody expected it to be 41. And the tricky part about it is the address of the property was only originally still listed as one piece of property and not two. So when the address is put in the contract, it's bringing up the piece where the in this case, it was bringing up the piece that's the lot and not the house. And so, depending on the information that's given to the company that's doing your closing, that's the information that's being worked on. So, I bring this up because it's really important for you to, number one, as I've said several times, is the company that's doing your closing has to be somebody who has information, is good information, has good investigation skills, sees things, has a really good track record of picking things up that may be a little bit askew. In this case, if the addresses were different than the and the lot numbers didn't match up, that would be a red flag. Now, some title companies, because they're more of a production type of title company and less about the customer service and the detail, may not have picked that up. We didn't, in this case, pick it up until we got to closing because, unfortunately, there wasn't two separate addresses and the lot number was wrong on the contract. So that's the information we had to go by. But as the purchaser or the seller, asking questions. When you don't understand things or something doesn't seem to make sense to you, then ask the question. The other piece about this that I want to caution you on is, I talk about this a lot, but this is really big. It used to be that every single deal, the lender required a location survey, and the location survey is a drawing of where that house sits and any improvements on the piece of property. And the location drawing gives you a lot of information, not a lot of guarantees, but what the surveyor says is, here's what I see based on what's in your contract and what I've been told to do this drawing on. Here's what I see, where the fence is, where the shed is, where maybe a detached garage is, where the house sits. It won't show anything under the ground, so you're not going to know where the well or the septic system is, or maybe an underground oil tank, but it does show you things that are improvements above ground. But that would be a red flag as well. As you're going through the process, if the surveyor says, wait a minute, what's in the contract is not what I see out there on the property. Now, I say that it used to be that it was very common for lenders always required a location survey be done because they wanted to make sure too, because they're loaning you so much money, that the property that you're borrowing against is what they're expecting to be able to loan money against and what you intended to purchase. Now, lenders don't really require that. What they ask of us is to insure over any survey issues for them. But unfortunately, the ownership protection does not cover you if for some reason the house isn't where it's supposed to be sitting on the lot. Maybe the fence isn't, maybe the lot numbers are off. And those are some things that we may not catch until we get to closing, because we're having conversations with everyone at the time. We have no red flags at that point to say, wow, this isn't the right lot, or maybe there's a discrepancy in the way the lot looks. So I urge you, even though it's not required by your lender, for between $100 or $200, you can have a survey done that shows you that everything you think you're purchasing, when you walk out there and do the walkthrough, you actually look at the property, you walk outside and you walk around, all those things that you think you're purchasing may not actually be located on that property. So I really urge you to get a survey to guarantee that those things are where you think they are, or that they're not, and that you can address that before closing. Because one of the most common things we see is after closing, then people go get a survey to have maybe a fence put up for their dog, or something of that sort. Maybe they decide they want to put a shed in, so they have to so they have a survey done, so they make sure they put it where they want, and then they find out some things that were on that property when they originally purchased it are not located where they expected them to be. So I really urge you, even though it's not required, to spend the money to do that, because it helps make sure that everything you think you're purchasing is on the property that you're purchasing, and that the property you're purchasing actually is all of what you think you're purchasing. So hopefully I gave you a little bit of information today, a little bit short and sweet, but it's caution, because I try to bring up things that we see come up. I try to bring up things that maybe might be questions that you may have, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to look at this, because these are some things that even as a good title company that we may not be able to foresee unless we are able to talk about it at the time we get to closing, and sometimes that might be a little bit too late. So I urge you guys to ask questions, to look for a title company that has a track record of not having these types of issues, and you can ask those questions. Ask about claims, ask how long they've been in business, ask who they work with, and get some references from people that have done closings with them. A lot of title companies have references or have reviews on their website. Of course, we all look at reviews, but look at those kinds of things on their Facebook page, all that information, because those are flags for you to make sure you don't want to be sitting in your bedroom or in your living room one night watching TV, and you've been doing some decorating and all of that, and you find out, wow, my driveway isn't actually on my property. Somebody shows up at your door and says, hey, you've been using this driveway and this isn't your driveway. These are kinds of things you don't want to happen after you actually buy that house and go to closing. So, hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, Matt, how are you? Hey, Naren, how are you? Thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks for your feedback. I appreciate it. One thing I'd like is, if you feel that something we're talking about is good, hit the share button. Share it with people you know, because I can't get to those people to share information, and hopefully the information maybe help somebody else or spur a question. And feel free to reach out with questions that you have, because one of my huge passions is to provide information and make sure that you guys have the ability to ask questions and know where to go get those questions answered. And I don't know all the answers to all the questions, but I have a lot of good real estate professionals, some of which are tuned in this morning here, that I work with, that we can certainly get some answers for those types of questions that maybe we can't answer. So hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Stay cool out there. If you're on the East Coast, it's hot as heck, but it is the middle of July. So hope you guys have a fantastic Thursday. I look forward to talking to you several times during the week. So tune in and stay up on all the stuff we're talking about, and let me know if there's something I can help you with. I'm Connie Fuksa with Footetitlegroup, where we protect your home ownership. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.